I wanted to start off with your story because you grew up during the Cultural Revolution in China. Let me just open the floor to you. What was that like?
Well, unfortunately, I was born 2 years right before Chairman Mao started his Cultural Revolution. Of course, I did not know anything about what it was about. We just born into it. And later I learned that he used this Cultural Revolution to really do a cleansing and purge all his political enemies inside of Communist Party, which is ruling one party, and the outside the party. So all the people he used to advance his agenda were a whole bunch of young people and very innocent, surely worship him as supreme leader called the Red Guards. So what was life like? When I was little, it was just loudspeaker come on our community house and every morning 6:30 and to sing red songs, to say long live Chairman Mao, time to go work and time to go to school. And you cannot even sleep in. Of course, we have very, very primitive conditions where 8 families share one bathroom. It's a big hole on the ground and no light bulbs at night. So you better get a little party in your apartment. Otherwise, you will fall into this big hole and get buried alive by the human waste. And it was one water faucet and very dark and no electricity. But we were basically indoctrinated to believe we should be grateful. We should be grateful for our leader, for our party, because Taiwanese people were suffering and the 2/3 of world population were starving. And we were starving. My stomach was growling all the time because we had the food rationing coupons that if your parents were higher positions, then they get to have more coupons than you do. My parents were illiterate workers class, bottom of the food chain. So communists will want you to believe once you achieve communism, socialism, you're on the top of the food chain. That's not true. All the promises were broken that he promised to the Chinese people. Instead, you have millions, for about 45 million people starved to death in the 3 years mass famine. So that's the situation I was in, but I did not know anything. I was his, young pioneer, red guard, and I was a red child, and I'm wearing this jacket today because during Mao, he said, let's get rid of 4 old culture, old custom, old ideas, and old customs. So that old habit. So if you have a Chinese traditional jacket like this, that's old. That's old Chinese tradition. We need to ban it. So we were wearing approved political correct colors like white and green and navy blue, and the hairs have to be correct. You cannot have hair laid down like this. And you cannot have makeup. The girls not supposed to look attractive. We're banned from dating. Is that sick when you look back? And when I look at my life, it's like, how did I believe that? But you had no choice because you did not know the truth. They control all the press, all the radio stations, all the newspapers. There's no free speech. How do you know the truth? Sad to say, that's the environment I grew up with.
So you just said so many interesting things just then, which I see being paralleled in our culture right now. You said that, they basically didn't want women to look like women, which I think we're absolutely seeing nowadays. They're trying to basically tell women that, there's one way to be, and then that's the way you should do it. You're talking about, you were telling me before we came on the air that that he was telling you to burn, not just that you couldn't wear that pretty jacket, but that burn it because this is a remnant of the past. And it's right now we're experiencing where they're trying to erase the past now in this country.
Well, Mao used red guards and asked them to go basically eliminate all rightists and capitalists, revisionists, whatever he named them, 5 black classes. So they forgive you example that the red guard would go door to door, vandalize 250,000 private homes. That time, probably just people's homes, no more private property in Shanghai. So before they come, people who are a little bit wealthy had all the traditional silk jacket, barcade jacket, dresses like this, all the furniture, the books and family photos. You got to burn them. You got to get rid of them. And otherwise, they found out you have those things, and you're going to go to the struggling sessions to ask you to confess. And they will denounce you, publicly shame you, and hold their face like this, and it was public shaming sessions. And then they ask you to go to a room, give you a piece of paper to say, check those out and find out how black class you were. How many years ago your ancestors owned the land, owned the factories, exploring workers and all that, self-criticize list. Then you got to stay in that room, write down to self-criticize you, to confess to Chiang Mai Mao. Does that sound familiar? It just so many people committed suicide according to the party official, okay? Not even my statistics. 20 million people, Chinese, died during the 10 years Cultural Revolution. And lots of people just killed themselves too. Some died of starvation, could not handle the torture, and some were murdered. You think that experiment needs to be tried again? Everything tried by communists and by socialist countries have failed. How many human beings were going to make them to go through to try to say if your ideology is truly utopian society or not? Our promises of free food, equality and justice never came. I was silenced. I was so afraid to speak the truth. I just complied, long live Chiang Mai Mao, hold the little red books, and thank God my parents were red class. What if I was black class? I would be public shamed all the time in the government schools. Think about what kind of life people would have to live. That's why some people get depressed and just totally disappear from the society.
So what is the difference between red class and black class?
So according to your positions and your family background, for example, if you are like me, workers and peasants, revolutionary and carters and soldiers, Communist Party and good members, and you are the red class. But if you are landowners and rightists, so-called, how do they define rightists? According to Mao, rightists are anybody who dissident, intellectuals who don't agree with him. And if you have a foreign overseas connections, if your family were rich and you were capitalist and were rich before he took over, then you were black classes. See, lots of kids already become red classes if you look at their current status. But if you're black class because your family were black, because your grandparents owned land, then you were classified with your ancestors. You were black classes, and you can never be allowed to join Mao's grassroots organizations like Young Pioneer, Red Guards, and you will never get promoted to work, and you're supposed to go to those struggling sessions. Some kids just feel so bad about being a black class family, they would denounce their family members. There's one guy documentary talk about he was 16, red guard. He tipped the government police to say, my mom said something bad about Chiang Mai Mao, like he did not write his little red books. And they come to get his mom, torture her to death in front of his eyes. And he been living alone in that guilt for all his life. He goes to his mom's place now, the place she was tortured to death, to give flower and talk to her all day. So sad.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. So much to unpack there. So you've talked about the public struggle sessions, the public shaming sessions a couple of times. And I want to really get in on this because I feel like this happens all the time. Now, not in an organized way where it's sanctioned by the government necessarily, but, we see public struggle sessions everywhere. We see them in schools. We see them online. We see them in organizations, and so tell us a little bit more about how that happened in China.
Well, when I first saw on TV that somebody eating in the restaurant were publicly shamed by social justice warriors, hold their face up in front of her face, I was so shocked. It's like, wow, that sure reminds me of the public shaming struggling sessions. You cannot even be quiet. So the struggling session, the aim is to help the whole country to form certain public opinions against the black class families and the so-called bad elements of the society. And the session normally will gather huge crowds in the library, in schools, mouth shut down all these schools to do political struggles for the young people, right? So you have all those public areas that gather lots of people just don't know what's going on. Let's go say it. But they will have loudspeakers to say, come to say it. This Mr. Wang is really bad, black class. We got to make him to confess his crimes. He's bad influence, and his family were super rich, exploring people. So you go to those struggling sessions. So those people lower their head, confess, denounce themselves. If they don't do good job, you said, I have no crime to confess. And then they're going to, hold their fist up and chanting slogans, down Mr. Wang. Then sometimes like in the universities and on campuses, the students will throw rocks at professors and principals who did not confess according to their style, their wish. It was horrible. Then you can get tortured at night, go back to a little camp to stay there overnight, and no food, no water. The worst, they sent you to countryside, primitive re-educational camps for you continue to do hard manual labor. I had a high school teacher when I was 16. He was really tall and handsome, my math teacher. He was sick. I went to visit him. He said, Lily, I hurt my back because of my manual work in the re-educational camp. So in the 50s, Mao and the party were saying, come on, give us criticism. They always make those empty promises. We want to hear what you truly think about party. And he and his college students were so naive. They gave some feedback. It was very minor feedback to say, oh, maybe policy here needs to change, this policy needs to change. Then they get on the blacklist, all sent to the re-educational camps, doing hard labor. Then he told me, our country is made by the people who only want to exercise rule of man, not a rule of laws. And a few madmen can kill millions of people. And that just really hit me. That's why when I was able to go to college at the age of 17, I said, oh, I'm going to change China to a rule of law society. And boom, that dream come total crash. When I become faculty member of a law school, it's still subject to one-party rule. And they told me, Lily, our law is not to serve the people. Our law is a tool for the Communist Party to govern the masses. You're just one of the masses. You are not a human being with dignity and pride. I was totally depressed. For 4 years in college, why am I going to do that? That's why later I decided I'm going to leave China because I want to live like a human being with dignity and pride.
So let me just really make sure I understood what you just said, because you said that when you became a professor at a law school, you wanted to teach people the rule of law so that could be elevated over this government that was just intent on controlling people, right? And the people at the law school said to you, no, the law does not serve the people. The law serves the one-party system.
Correct. That was a Soviet Union model, that you are assumed to be guilty by the state until you prove yourself to be innocent. Nobody could ever prove themselves to be innocent. Even in China today, so-called the second largest economy, if you're a dissident, your social credit score is really bad, you lose all your freedoms. You go to jail. Human rights lawyers, 30 of them disappeared a few years ago, include their family members. You don't have a fair trial. Some of them just in the prison of conscience, we call the black prisons, where you get locked up, you don't have a fair trial, you don't have due process, or you come out on public TV to do a public confessing, I'm guilty. Who knows how many tortures made them to do that, right? If they want to live and not to be tortured. So that the people don't understand when they talk about China today, and the people who on another side will say, oh, China is the second largest economy now, and they're doing great, combine COVID, all that stuff. They don't understand. We have a one-party rule. All the leaders were not elected. They're appointed, and they control all the newspapers, TV stations, and radios, and the social media, and big tech. How could they let you to know the truth? You trust their numbers? You're insane. So people don't understand what is the system we have in China. It's more like a fascist country now because they allow you to have a little bit of freedom to own your business, running restaurant, to make some money. But you got to listen to me. Even billionaires disappear in China once in a while. Then they come out to apologize. Oh, I'm sorry. I said that against the policy. I shouldn't. Just look at Jack Ma, right? He was disappeared for a while. Nobody is safe in a totalitarian country, in a one-party dictatorship. And we need to be united as people because they like to divide people, then conquer them all. If you want to cancel other people now, trust me, you will be the next to be canceled by them because trust me, you're not 1% of political ruling class in this country and you will be canceled next. That's my advice to all the actually normal liberals or classic liberals. You need to speak up loud to against this crap.